What's up, everyone? Today we're taking a not-so-scenic tour of Canada's urban decay. We're counting down the top 10 cities that are falling apart faster than a hockey player's teeth in a fight. If you're thinking of moving to Canada, you might want to watch this first. So, what makes a city crumble? We're looking at three big things: money problems, falling apart buildings, and people getting out of Dodge. Trust me, these places are struggling more than me trying to pronounce poutine after a few beers. Now, I can't tell you which city's at number one just yet, but let's just say it makes Detroit look like a luxury resort. Seriously, if you're thinking about moving to Canada or investing there, you need to know about these urban train wrecks. It could save you from making a bigger mistake than putting ketchup on your poutine. So grab a seat and let's dive into this hot mess of maple syrup and regret. The Forgotten 5, Cities 10 to 6. Alright, time to spill the beans on our bottom 5. Think you know which cities are circling the drain? Get ready for some jaw-droppers that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about Canadian urban decay. Let's kick things off with number 10 on our list, Thunder Bay, Ontario. This city's been hit harder than a hockey puck at the Stanley Cup Finals. Once a bustling port town, Thunder Bay's now dealing with more ghosts than tourists. The city's seen a 2% population drop in the last 5 years. And it's not because people are fleeing the cold. Nope, they're running from the city's skyrocketing crime rates. In 2019, Thunder Bay had the highest homicide rate in Canada. Talk about a killer reputation, eh? Moving on to number 9, we've got Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. This place is shedding jobs faster than a husky loses fur in summer. The steel industry that once kept this city afloat is now barely treading water. With an unemployment rate hovering around 8%, it's no wonder the population's shrinking faster than my waistline after poutine season. Number 8 on our list is a real shocker, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Yeah, you heard that right. This East Coast gem is losing its shine faster than a rusty lobster trap. Despite being a major port city, Halifax is struggling with a serious brain drain. Young professionals are bailing out faster than passengers on the Titanic. Too soon? The city's got a rapidly aging population and a growth rate that's flatter than a prairie landscape. Coming in at number 7, we've got St. John, New Brunswick. This city's got more empty buildings than a ghost town in a Western movie. St. John's been hit with a double whammy of population decline and aging infrastructure. The city's water system is so old it probably remembers the War of 1812. And with a poverty rate of over 20%, St. John's future is looking about as bright as a Newfoundland fog. Rounding out our bottom 5 at number 6 is Sudbury, Ontario. This mining town is digging itself into a hole deeper than its famous nickel mines. Sudbury's population has been stagnant for years, and its economy is more volatile than a moose during mating season. The city's trying to reinvent itself, but so far it's having about as much success as a beaver trying to dam Niagara Falls. Now you might be thinking, surely it can't get worse than this. Oh, my sweet summer child. These cities are just the warm-up act. The top 5 on our list are so messed up they make these places look like they're vying for Canada's next top city. The struggling middle, cities 5 to 3? You thought those last 5 were bad? Buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to dive into a trio of urban nightmares that'll make you question if you're still in the Great White North. What happens when a city's main export becomes its own residence? These next 3 will show you. Coming in at number 5, we've got Windsor, Ontario. This border city is struggling harder than a Canadian trying to explain why bagged milk is a thing. Once the automotive capital of Canada, Windsor's now looking more like a giant parking lot for abandoned factories. The city's unemployment rate is hovering around 8%, which is higher than the number of times I've heard someone say, "sorry," in a Tim Hortons line. But hey, there's a silver lining. Windsor's got a booming industry in urban exploration. Yeah, abandoned factories are now tourist attractions. It's like a post-apocalyptic theme park, minus the fun rides and cotton candy. Moving on to number 4, we've got St. John's, Newfoundland. This East Coast city is sinking faster than the Titanic, and ironically, that's part of its tourism draw. St. John's is dealing with a perfect storm of problems. A rapidly aging population, a struggling oil industry, and a cost of living that's higher than a moose on stilts. The city's infrastructure is so old, I'm pretty sure some of the roads remember Confederation. But don't worry, St. John's has a plan. They're considering renaming pothole-filled streets as authentic cobblestone roads. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade, eh? And now, drumroll please. At number 3, we've got Trois-Rivières, Quebec. This city's been hit harder than a hockey puck at the Stanley Cup Finals. Once a booming paper mill town, Trois-Rivières now has more closed shops than open ones. The city's population growth is flatter than a crepe, and its economy is about as stable as a canoe in Whitewater Rapids. But it's not all bad news. Trois-Rivières is becoming a hotspot for retirees. Nothing says city on the rise like a booming demand for bingo halls and early bird specials, right? Now you might be thinking, surely it can't get worse than this. Oh, my sweet summer child. These cities are just the warm-up act. The top two on our list are so messed up they make these places look like they're vying for Canada's next top city. The not-so-silver medalist, City 2. Remember when your parents said there's always someone worse off than you? Well, our runner-up city is that someone for the rest of Canada. It's so bad, even the moose are packing their antlers and moving out. Which unlucky urban center is winning the race to the bottom? Drumroll, please. It's none other than Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yeah, you heard that right. The peg is circling the drain faster than a hockey puck in a playoff game. Once known as the gateway to the West, Winnipeg's now more like the goodbye to your best years. This prairie powerhouse has fallen harder than a drunk curler on ice. Let's break down why Winnipeg's in such hot water. First off, the city's infrastructure is crumbling faster than a stale Tim Hortons donut. Potholes? More like crater lakes. The roads are so bad, locals joke that moon buggies would struggle here. And don't even get me started on the bridges. They're so rusty, tetanus shots are handed out at toll booths. But it's not just the roads that are falling apart. Winnipeg's economy is shakier than a Jenga tower in an earthquake. The city's been hemorrhaging jobs faster than a sliced artery. Major employers have been packing up and leaving town, taking thousands of jobs with them. It's like watching a massive game of corporate musical chairs, except when the music stops, everyone loses. And let's talk about crime. Winnipeg's got a reputation that'd make Al Capone blush. The city's been dubbed the violent crime capital of Canada more times than I've had double-doubles. It's so bad, even the polar bears at the zoo are considering relocating to safer Arctic waters. But wait, there's more. Winnipeg's population growth is flatter than Saskatchewan on a calm day. Young people are fleeing the city faster than tourists during mosquito season. The brain drain is so severe the city's considering "Come back, we're sorry" as its new slogan. Now you might be thinking, surely there must be some good news. Well, if you consider it's not the absolute worst good news, then sure. Winnipeg's got that going for it. The city's trying to turn things around, but so far their efforts have been about as effective as using a snow shovel to dig out of quicksand. Here's a fun fact that'll make your head spin. Winnipeg's poverty rate is so high it's considering renaming North End to North Endgame. Over 20% of the city's residents live below the poverty line. That's not just a statistic, folks. That's a crisis. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Winnipeg's got a booming industry in urban exploration. Yeah, abandoned factories and empty office buildings are now tourist attractions. It's like a post-apocalyptic theme park minus the fun rides and cotton candy. They're even thinking of marketing it as Fallout Winnipeg Edition to attract millennials. Now you might be wondering, what could possibly be worse than this frozen wasteland of despair? Well, my friends, our number one spot makes Winnipeg look like a tropical paradise. It's so bad, even the polar bears are packing their sunscreen and heading south. But that's a story for our grand finale, the crown jewel of collapse, City 1. You thought Winnipeg was bad? Brace yourselves for Canada's urban dumpster fire. This place is so messed up it makes Mad Max look like a tourism ad. What city could possibly out-disaster the peg? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the crown jewel of collapse, the pinnacle of urban decay. The city that makes all other struggling towns breathe a sigh of relief. Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah, you heard that right. Steeltown is rusted over and it's taking the title of Canada's most crumbling city. Once the industrial heartland of Ontario, Hamilton's now the poster child for urban decline. It's like the city took go big or go home a little too seriously and decided to go big on going down the drain. Let's break down why Hamilton's sitting pretty ugly at the top of our list. First up, the economy. Remember when Hamilton was known for its booming steel industry? Well, those days are long gone. The steel mills that once defined the city are now more like giant, rusty lawn ornaments. The city's been hemorrhaging manufacturing jobs faster than a cut artery, leaving thousands of workers high and dry. But it's not just the job market that's a mess. Hamilton's infrastructure is falling apart, faster than a house of cards in a tornado. The roads are so bad, locals joke that potholes are the city's new tourist attraction. Come see the Grand Canyon of Ontario right on Main Street. And don't even get me started on the water system. It's so old and decrepit, some parts of it probably remember Confederation. Now you might be thinking, surely it can't be that bad. Oh, but it is. Hamilton's got a poverty rate that'd make even Dickens do a double take. Over 19% of the population is living below the poverty line. That's not just a statistic, folks. That's 1 in 5 Hamiltonians struggling to make ends meet. But wait, there's more. Hamilton's also dealing with a serious case of brain drain. Young people are fleeing the city faster than rats from a sinking ship. The city's population growth is so stagnant, it makes a pond look like a raging river. And those who do stick around? They're facing a housing crisis that's turning the American dream into the Canadian nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, let's talk about Hamilton's crime rate. The city's got more gangs than a biker rally, and the violent crime rate is through the roof. It's so bad, even the squirrels are taking self-defense classes. Now you might be wondering, what's Hamilton doing about all this? Well, they're trying. They've got more revitalization plans than a plastic surgeon's waiting room. But so far, these efforts have been about as effective as using a Band-Aid to fix the Titanic. Here's a fun fact that'll make your head spin. Hamilton's air quality is so bad, it's considering rebranding itself as the smog capital of Canada. The city's industrial past has left a legacy of pollution that's sticking around longer than that weird smell in your fridge. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Hamilton's got a booming industry in urban exploration. Yeah, abandoned factories are now tourist attractions. It's like a post-apocalyptic theme park, minus the fun rides and cotton candy. They're even thinking of marketing it as Fallout Hamilton Edition to attract millennials. The common thread: what's causing the collapse? Hamilton's not the only city playing post-apocalyptic bingo. Think these urban meltdowns are random? Think again. There's a common thread running through all these cities, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like a game of Jenga, but instead of wooden blocks, we're talking about entire urban economies. So what's the deal? Why are these Canadian cities falling apart faster than a cheap igloo in summer? Well, it's not just one thing. It's like a perfect storm of urban decay, and it's hitting cities coast to coast. First up, we've got the classic one-trick pony problem. A lot of these cities built their entire economies around a single industry. Hamilton had steel, Windsor had cars, Thunder Bay had shipping. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket, then dropping that basket off a cliff. When that main industry takes a hit, the whole city goes down with it. But it's not just about jobs. These cities are dealing with infrastructure that's older than your grandma's recipe for moose stew. Roads are crumbling, bridges are rusting, and water systems are leaking more than a politician's promise. It's like these cities are stuck in a time warp, and not the fun kind with Rocky Horror costumes. Then there's the brain drain. Young people are leaving these cities faster than a Mountie chasing a donut thief. They're heading to bigger cities like Toronto and Vancouver, leaving behind aging populations and shrinking tax bases. It's a demographic disaster that's turning some of these places into giant retirement communities. But here's where it gets really interesting. All these cities are suffering from a serious case of political neglect. It's like their leaders are playing SimCity with their eyes closed. Years of short-term thinking and Band-Aid solutions have left these urban centers in worse shape than a hockey player's teeth after a championship game. And let's not forget about climate change. Yeah, I know it sounds like a buzzword, but it's hitting these cities hard. Extreme weather is wreaking havoc on already fragile infrastructure. It's like Mother Nature looked at these struggling cities and said, "Hold my beer." Now here's the kicker. All these problems, they're not just happening in isolation. They're feeding off each other like a bunch of hungry beavers at a log rolling contest. Job losses lead to population decline, which leads to less tax revenue, which means less money for infrastructure repairs, which makes the city less attractive to new businesses and residents. It's a vicious cycle that's harder to break than a Canadian's addiction to Tim Hortons. But wait, there's more. These cities are also dealing with housing crises that would make Vancouver blush. In Hamilton, for example, housing prices have skyrocketed while wages have stagnated. It's like trying to buy a mansion with monopoly money. And here's a fun fact that'll make your head spin. Despite all these problems, some of these cities are still growing. How? Immigration. New Canadians are moving in, often unaware of the economic quicksand they're stepping into. It's like watching someone walk into a bear trap in slow motion. So what's the takeaway here? Well, it's not just about avoiding these specific cities. It's about understanding that these problems could pop up anywhere in Canada. It's like a game of urban whack-a-mole. Today it's Hamilton and Winnipeg, tomorrow it could be Calgary or Quebec City. Is there hope for these urban disasters? Now, before you start packing your bags and heading for the hills, here's a curveball for you. Some of these urban disasters might have a trick or two up their sleeves. But the real question is, are these tricks enough to pull off the ultimate escape act? Let's talk about Hamilton. They're trying to shake off that rust and reinvent themselves as an arts and culture hub. They've even got a catchy slogan, "Art is the new steel." It's like watching your grandpa try to become a TikTok influencer. Cute, but probably not going to pay the bills. Winnipeg's not taking its decline lying down either. They're pumping money into downtown revitalization projects faster than you can say, "Go Jets, go." But here's the kicker. It's like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teaspoon. Sure, you're doing something, but is it really making a dent? And Thunder Bay? They're betting big on becoming a knowledge economy hub. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them. Spoiler alert, so far it's about as successful as trying to sell ice to Eskimos. Now I know what you're thinking. Surely these efforts must be making some difference, right? Well, yes and no. It's like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house with a crumbling foundation. Looks nice from a distance, but get too close and you'll fall right through the floor. Let's do a reality check. These cities are dealing with decades of neglect, industry collapse, and brain drain. You can't fix that with a few art galleries and tech startups. It's like trying to cure pneumonia with cough drops. Might make you feel better for a minute, but it's not solving the underlying problem. So what might these urban disasters look like in 10 or 20 years if current trends continue? Well, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a city where the main industry is urban exploration tourism. Come see the ruins of the Canadian dream, only $19.99 per person. Winnipeg might rebrand as Little Detroit, all the urban decay, now with more snow. Hamilton could become the world's largest open-air museum of industrial archaeology. See the rusted remains of Canada's steel industry, marvel at nature reclaiming abandoned factories. They might even start offering degrees in post-industrial survival studies at the local university. And Thunder Bay, it might just become Canada's first official ghost town. They could market it as an extreme social distancing destination. Experience true isolation in the middle of nowhere. But hey, it's not all bad news. These declining cities might inadvertently solve Canada's housing crisis. Think about it. Plenty of empty houses, dirt-cheap real estate. It's like a nationwide fire sale. Buy one crumbling home, get two more free. And let's not forget the potential for post-apocalyptic movie sets. Hollywood North could become Hollywood Post-North. Who needs CGI when you've got real-life urban decay right at your doorstep? Now, I know this all sounds pretty grim, but remember, Canadians are nothing if not resilient. These cities might be down, but they're not out. Yet, they're like that guy at the party who's had way too much to drink but insists he's fine to drive. You know it's not going to end well, but you've got to admire the optimism. So what's the takeaway here? Well, if you're looking for a place to invest in real estate, maybe look elsewhere. Unless you're really into fixer-uppers. And by fixer-uppers, I mean entire cities. Well, folks, we've taken a wild ride through Canada's urban decay, and it ain't pretty. These cities are falling apart faster than a soggy Tim Hortons donut. From crumbling infrastructure to vanishing jobs, it's a mess from coast to coast. But here's the thing. This isn't just about avoiding Hamilton or Winnipeg. It's about understanding the big picture. These urban disasters could pop up anywhere. Today it's Steeltown, tomorrow it could be your town. So what's the takeaway? If you're thinking of moving to Canada or investing there, do your homework. Don't just look at the shiny brochures. Dig deeper. Check out job markets, infrastructure, and long-term trends. And hey, if you enjoyed this cheerful tour of Canada's urban nightmares, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more uplifting content coming your way. Remember, folks, in Canada, the beaver might be friendly, but the cities? Not so much.